recently told me that I should do a video on reloading for accuracy. And so the question is, how do you get this to this? One of the first steps you need to do, after of course you sorted your brass, made sure it was all the same caliber, is to, what I like to do is deprime. And the reason I do this before I clean them is so that the cleaning media can get into that primer pocket and help clean it out a little bit. And I've got set up in my press here this is a Lee decapping die, and it's a universal, so it will knock the primer out of any case no matter what the size or caliber it is. And so it just simply works with a primer punch tool and just knock that primer out of there. And once you have that done, then you need to take it and put it into some type of cleaner. Either this is a dry vibratory cleaner, ultrasonic wet, or a wet tumble, whatever you choose to do. Just you need to clean them. And the reason for this is you want to clean that case before you run it into your expensive reloading dies to avoid getting scratches or blemishes in your dies. Okay, after all your brass is clean, and this is actually, I'm showing you a box of brand new Lapua brass for the 308. No primers. Lapua does a great job, by the way, of quality control. I find that their brass is very consistent. But after you have that clean, then you want to set your press up with your resizing die. Now this is a Redding S-collet die, and it's for competition use. It allows the run out to be minimal, but what we need to do, we'll need to put some lube on these cases, and then we need to resize them in order for them to accept a bullet. And then once that's done, I will put the primer in. That'll be the next step. So what I've chosen is this Imperial dry neck lube. It works well, and I'll just give each case a quick dip in here before I size it, and just do one at a time. It goes quick and easy, and the beauty of it being dry is I don't have to necessarily clean the case afterwards to get the lubricant off. I can just I can leave it on, or I can just wipe it off, either way. But once that's done, I'll insert the case into my press ram and then commence with the process of resizing. Now these are being brand new cases. Sometimes they'll be a little out of sort, and you may have more or less force be required, but just go through the whole batch, get each one done. Okay, here we have all our brass resized, and I actually run it back through the tumbler to remove any lubrication residue that may have been on them. These cases come from the factory. They're new, they're ready to load pretty much, except for the resizing process. But I just want to show you this for demonstration purposes, that you would need to measure each case, and you need to have a book to tell you the maximum length of the case. In this case, for this 308, it's 2 inches and 15 thousandths. So we want to measure, that's a maximum, and I usually like to stay a little bit off of that because I don't want to have to trim every single time I shoot them. And here we see we got 2.007, so we're well within the maximum requirement. So no need to trim these, but I'll just show you how that would be done. If you have a nice station like this, you could just insert, once you have your case length set up in your trimmer, it would trim it to length. You could remove it. Then what you're going to want to do is you want to camphor and deburr the inside of that case mouth. Let me see if I can get a light to show you here. Now you notice these have probably already been done, but you want to just double check. If you haven't, if you're not using new brass, you definitely need to do this process: camphor, deburr, clean out the primer pockets. And this is nice that it has all these things available. You got a primer pocket cleaner, camphor, and deburr. all here in one step. And so you want to go through each one. Now, let me cut this off so you can hear. One thing you want to make sure you do is apply the same amount of pressure to each one. You don't want to like grind away at one and then have the others just barely done. You want to make sure you're consistent. Just keep in mind, consistency is the key to making accurate ammunition. And then also you want to use this neck brush. And part of that is you want to do that so that you don't contaminate your dies. Try to clean out the inside of that neck so you're not running any grit and grime up in your dies when you go to load. But anyway, you can go through the whole batch and do that, and remember, just be consistent with each one. Next, you want to put you some primers into a primer flipper tray, and you can give these a shake around. Most of the time they'll orient themselves with the anvil up. These are Federal match primers, a large rifle match, and sometimes you have a couple that won't flip over. I'll just take my fingers and turn those. Once we have them all with the anvil up, I want to be sure to put the lid on them so they don't turn over on you. Now, this is a RCBS hand priming tool, and I've had this thing for a good while now, and I really like it. RCBS does a good job. They have a little slide here where you can turn the flow of primers on and off by, sliding it up. You allow the primers to drop, and then of course by sliding it down you cut them off. But what's really nice about this thing is it's a universal fit. Let me grab a case here and show you. With the jaws that they have in there, any case would fit in there, and it'll hold it securely, at least securely enough to put a primer in anyway. But that way you don't have to mess with shell holders. Just this to fit all of them. So you see here we got no primer. Let me turn the flow on. Give them a little shake, get one down in there, and then insert my case and give it a squeeze, and we should have a primer. Now, this is an important step. You want to make sure that if you don't have good high quality brass where you trust the primer pockets are uniform, you'll need to do that with a camphor deburr tool or a primer pocket tool. Lapua does a great job. I'm not even checking them. I think they'll be fine. But also, another thing you want to make sure you utilize the same amount of pressure with each case and get those primers seated fully. A primer that's not seated fully can throw off a very small amount, but every little thing makes a little difference. And so the key, if we're going for accuracy, is to be consistent in everything that we do. Consistency in how we seat the primer, consistency in the neck case and the neck of the case, and then also being consistent, of course, in the powder charge itself is probably the most important. At least I feel like it is one of the most important. And of course, the length of the overall case also comes into play. Alright, here we got our cases. They've all been cleaned, deburred, trimmed, camphored, and now primed. And I've went ahead and taken the time and loaded them into loading blocks to make the job a little bit easier, so that it just holds everything in place for us. I've also went ahead and zeroed my scales. This is just a mechanical type scale with a magnetic dampening system on it. You can use whatever scale you choose, but I've had several electronic scales, and I've yet to find one that was very consistent, or at least to the degree that I was wanting. So I have chosen to go with this because this I have control over. And I'm going to try to throw a 43 grain charge. 40 and 3. Alright, there we go. And now what I've done, I've set my powder drop up to a little lower than the 43 grain mark, I think it said anyway. We're throwing for varget, and so what I'll do, I'll just get a powder drop and then I'll put it on the scale. And you notice I have a powder trickler setting here. And this is so that as I am, let me pan over here so you guys can see this. This is probably one of the most important steps to the reloading, in my opinion anyway. But I'll just keep bringing this up until I'm dead on the mark where I'm desired. Sometimes you make a mistake and go a little bit over, and I'll just take my finger and pull a grain out if that happens. But it's no big deal. One more. Okay. Okay, now we have our cases already charged with the correct powder, drop, weight for each one, and everything's ready to load that projectile. And I've already set up our seating die, and I set this up and I backed this stem out several rounds in order that my projectile is not seated too deeply. I'll take my projectile. I'm actually running a Berger 175 grain Bucktail long range target round on this particular round. You notice we'll go slow. We set the projectile on the mouth of the case, and then I'll typically give it a spin or two just to help center things up. But I'm going to go very slowly with the round, and I don't want no crimp. Adjust your die up to where you have no crimp going on. Now we go 2.99. Alright, so now we're a little long. So now we can just take this one projectile and begin to shorten it up until we get right where we want to be. Each time we'll take and remeasure. 2.98. Still a little bit long. Give it another adjustment. Okay, now let's see where we're at. 2.97. It's exactly where I want to be at. Alright, so what we're going to do now, we'll double check one more to make sure that that length is correct. That wasn't just a fluke. I'll actually check several more actually. I will check probably every fourth or fifth one to make sure that they're identical. That it hasn't moved on us while we're loading. And there again, dead on the money. And so that's what you do. You just continue. And remember, guns, government, and bullets can always let you down. That's why you should put your faith in God and in Jesus Christ, who will never let you down.